Yes. Muy buenas. Good evening, everybody being here on site and all of you who are following us online. Welcome to this Telos Forum, which is starting today, will last until Saturday, coinciding with the launch of the Telos 126 issue of the Telos magazine. My name is Magdalena Brier. I work in the foundation, which is aiming at working for digital education. We're working in favor of the rights of citizens, the future citizens of the 21st century. This Telos Forum will be revolving around the intergenerational dialogue, deepening into this intergenerational dialogue for the development of society, taking into account the growing diversity of society, the demographic challenges, and all the environmental, technological challenges that we are experiencing. It is essential to deepen into the development and the intergenerational dialogue. We're going to talk about the transformation brought about by technology, the fundamental aspects, especially dealing with how artificial intelligence is affecting education, especially how the actors, the stakeholders of education are sufficiently ready to deal with these challenges. I wish to remind you that you can take an issue of the magazine or download it for free at the Fundación Telefónica website or the Telos website. Without further ado, let me introduce our guests. We have three very relevant guests with great experience in technology and in education. You have their extended backgrounds on the web. Charles Fadel is a world leader in education. He has devoted his life to rethinking education for the contemporary world. As president, founder of the Center for Curriculum Redesign, he's worked with governments, international organizations, companies for transforming the educational systems in over 30 countries. He started working on AI in 1989, and very recently he published Education for the Era of Artificial Intelligence book. Nieves Segovia is an educator and expert on educational innovation. She leads the Center for Educational Group, an institution which is present in 10 international schools and in the Camilo José Cela University. Miguel Costa is Director of International Relations in the Empieza por Educar, Start by Educating Foundation. He holds a degree in education, holds a PhD in neuroscience, and while he was teaching, he found out his teaching vocation. Charles, thanks very much. The three Charles, I'd like to start with you. One first question would be, if you could redesign from zero an educational system to give answers to the era of artificial intelligence, how would you do it?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for all for being here. So, sorry. So, when you want to rethink education, you have to ask yourself, what is the goal, right, to begin with? Why are we teaching? And of course, the answer is always going to be this mixture between the social and psychological side, the psychosocial side of education, and the business side of education, meaning in the end, you also have to have a job. So it's dual nature, it's not one or the other. And unfortunately, very often we get into these debates. Rather than thinking and, we think or. Mm-hmm. So education is really for the psychosocial and for the economic purposes. So you have now the arrival of a new pressure, AI. AI can do a lot of things already today, but one thing we don't realize is that at the speed at which it's moving, in 15 years, we will have some form of general intelligence. Okay, and 15 years is not a long time because education systems are very slow to adapt, and public systems in general, public government systems are slow, healthcare is slow, and so we're going to be hit in the face. Our students, ourselves, are going to be facing very powerful AI in 15 years and already strong AI now. So what do you teach for that? So that's the first question. Now we still have the why question, but the what question comes next. What do you need to teach in a world of AI? So in the book that Magdalena referred to, we started looking at a lot of different aspects. First, you have to modernize your knowledge. Why teach so much trigonometry if we need more data science? Why don't we teach technology and engineering enough? Why don't we teach social sciences enough? Why don't we teach entrepreneurship? And I mean by that, teach them for everybody, not only for people who go to university. Then, we need to teach how to apply our knowledge, and that's our skills. We have to teach how to behave and engage in the world, and that's our character. And then most importantly, we need to teach how to adapt and learn how to learn. Now think about it for a second. If the world is changing around you all the time, what is the best gift you can give to your student, your child? The ability to adapt constantly and to be self-directed learning. Because we cannot predict how things are going to be 15 years from now, 10 years from now, even tomorrow. And so the best gift is not just what they have already learned, but their ability to continue learning, to be adaptable. Now, how many education systems you know do that? How many education systems really pay attention to transfer, meaning you learn something in one area at age 10, and 40 years later, you apply it in a different area? That's transfer. Do we do this explicitly when we're at school? Typically, no. We just push on expertise, but we don't apply this to transfer. So you see, just in a few words here, I've already given you a few targets for what a modern education should be about. So when you're asking me how would I redesign school, I would certainly not blow up the walls. That's completely wrong. People take these pictures from the 1800s and say, oh look, we still have tables even now. Yes, so what? That's not the point. That's a weak argument. The stronger argument is what happens in that classroom. How are we motivating the students if they can get answers from anywhere? How do you keep them motivated? How do you build their identity, their agency, their purpose, so they can respond to the world of AI? AI doesn't have purpose, and so far has limited agency. It has an identity, by the way. The identity is related to the data sets it uses, the algorithms that train the data set, the focus that the designers give it, and the user interface. So AI has a form of identity, but it doesn't have much agency and doesn't have a purpose. We humans decide on the purpose.
Muchas gracias.
Thanks very much. So we have to motivate them so that they can learn. A second question, how can educational systems efficiently integrate the teaching of cross-cutting transversal abilities like critical thinking, creativity, adaptability, without compromising the learning of fundamental curricular learnings?
It's education. So I grew up in technology, right? In technology circles, and then I transferred to education. One of the things that surprised me in education is how much people get polarized with or conversations. It's either one way or the other. It's my philosophy or the other philosophy. Whereas really, the response is very often the right mixture of all these things. So for instance, project-based learning versus didactic learning. Each one has its advantages. Didactic compresses 3,000 years of human knowledge and evolution into 12. It's a compression, and yes, it makes choices, but it's really a good thing. It's not always taught well, but it's inherently powerful. Projects are very motivating for the students, but they also can take time. They may not necessarily converge, right? So you cannot imagine a student doing projects on everything and rediscovering what humans have discovered since Mesopotamia. So the blend of both is what's needed, an and proposition. Same thing when it comes to competencies. We're not trying to say you teach knowledge or you teach critical thinking. We teach critical thinking while we're teaching knowledge. So as you're learning about fractions, you learn how to teach fractions better by making the students think critically about fractions. It's really embedding. It's like infusing your tea bag in a cup of tea. That's what it's about. It's infusing, it's not distinct. The problem is, since I wrote my first book, 21st Century Skills, back in 2008, I've seen hundreds of countries say, yeah, we want to do this. And not a single country, as far as 4 years ago, when we did research with Brookings, not a single country, not even Singapore, Finland, all the big champions, no one had done this. They just sent a bunch of PDFs to the teachers and said, good luck to you. That doesn't work. And so now we and others are more deliberate in making sure that this gets embedded in the lesson plans of teachers. And that's how they will teach fractions or any topic while they're teaching the competencies. It's not one or the other. Thank you.
Great. Nieves, I'm coming to you now to talk a little bit more about technology. You've said on occasions that AI is our greatest hope or our worst menace or threat. What decision factors do you believe are key to guarantee that this technological movement is an ally to learning instead of it being a threat to humanity? Thanks very much for the question and for inviting me to this forum. It is a real pleasure to share the evening with you. As Charles explained, we are now at the early stages of AI, and we have a space of uncertainties ahead of us, in front of us, big uncertainties. We need to learn to take the best decisions with very little information because we do not know the limitations of AI. And therefore, since the educational system does not really get on well with trial and error principles, we need to react in a way that the educational systems are not ready for or prepared for. It's not prepared for agile changes, incorporating best practices, modifications at a speed that is demanded by AI now. But despite this fact, the system does not have this ability. So this gives way to this big disruption that we've been talking about. There is a need to transform an obsolete system that is not in accordance with the needs of students, the needs of the society, the needs of the industry. But there used to be some contention walls in the system. We seem to be able to incorporate the technology, and a classroom moved on to being technological just by incorporating some devices. But when only one part is incorporated instead of a whole set of factors, it doesn't work. So we were adding complexity sometimes instead of gaining efficiency, and these were the results. So after so many years of using technology, the system has not improved because it didn't have this capacity of deep transformation. But we are now at a point in which the system does not have many choices. So this creates this big disruption, and we don't have any contention walls for it or against it. It is making us confronted with a stage in which we have, or scenario in which we have to learn very quickly, being able to make the right decisions that will be fast, small decisions taken for the very short term, because we really don't know what will be happening in 3 months, much less in 3 years. And we need the balance to be tilted towards hope instead of towards threats. Hopes and threats for the system and for the students. Threats can lie in losing relevance, being dependent on external factors that students, persons can resort to in their learning processes. We need to play a major role in society, and the relevance lies in a change of paradigm, something we've been wanting to happen for many years, this hyper-personalization of the educational model, so that the student can get to where he needs to be instead of wait for us to offer students the unique experiences, being able to assess those experiences, assessing and connecting the contents with the social needs. This is the big opportunity of the system, but it can also be a big threat. And the same for students, or similar for students. Students have the possibility to develop their personal potentials, their attributes, that they can bring them very far if they have a tool that we like calling augmented intelligence. It is at their disposal for making them better citizens if they're capable of automating what they have to automate instead of automating augmenting their human factors, being able to connect with emotions, being able to think critically, taking creativity much, much farther, creating new knowledge from a different foundation with a different perspective, that it is much more contextualized in the human experience. So we have the opportunity to make education more human than ever, even if we are talking about a technology that seems to be dehumanized for many. So it's about this transformation. And from the educational institutions that you lead, what do you believe we should do to give access to this revolution in the least favored environment? Well, I'm maybe over optimistic, but it is a rational optimism in this case, because I believe that this is a tool that is our reach, and it allows for the optimization of the human resources. So what a good educational system needs is good professionals, good teachers that can work on what they were trained for doing, working for students, automating what should be automated. There are some aspects that bring teachers back to the noblest meaning of the word teacher. A teacher is he or she who understands you, knows your reality, is capable of motivating you. Because this role of the teacher that we lost in the previous model, unfortunately, because teachers have to do lots of automatic tasks. They are teaching the same contents every day from 9 to 11, from 9 to 1. So we will release teachers from tasks that can be outsourced, and we can bring back all that role. So it's about optimizing these resources, making them much more efficient, and this will increase the quality of the system in a way that is proportional, directly proportional. In addition to this, disruptions take place, or where do these disruptions begin? At points where the alternative is very poor quality. So when we're talking about improving non-consolidated educational systems in environments or countries with a more rigid system, and it's difficult. But when the alternatives are bad, maybe testing the adoption of these technologies that make the educational process much more efficient will be much faster. So I see a space, I see an opportunity for learning that will go much faster in those spaces that require the greatest amount of tools to improve the quality of the educational actions. Talking about teachers, From your experience in Empieza por Educar, begin by educating. What digital competences do you believe are essential for teachers working in unfavored areas? And how do you develop those educational programs?
Well, digital skills or competences, I would say that any other worker in the industrial fabric of this country. But this starts with selection. And Charles said very optimistically, I would say, that there should be a balance between the social part of teaching and the part that entails having a job. We have to check that, and we cannot take it for granted. Part of the skills that we need to look for in a teacher is that they really have the interest to educate and to teach at the same time, not just having a job. So in that regard, the digital skills of anyone that has grown and is developing as a professional in the current world. So skills to work online, to work with others, to have access to relevant information, to execute their tasks quickly and effectively. And that's what we look for, really. And we also look to train those teachers in a digital world, of course, through a training that comes with methodologies that already include digitalization, like, for example, reverse classrooms or blended education, or working in teamwork online with other teachers or professors. So the same as any other professionals of the productive fabric of the business world. And I also think that we need digital skills to develop in the classroom set and content that is quality content and that really makes a difference. Both AI and the world that is coming in the field of education in the next few years exposes us a lot more as teachers, because we have to show our added value, and that has to be the use of digital tools to motivate students to generate significant teaching. And we have to work on methodologies that have been developing for many years, but which now the artificial intelligence invites us to work on them through scenarios, through projects, through working with other teachers, and so on and so forth. And that entails or requires some obvious digital skills. So for me, the teaching skills have to be adapted to what is being demanded right now. And what is required now is not a standard education, but a quality education. And in the schools have to mimic life. And we have to be trained to do exactly that. Education at a school has to prepare you for what comes afterwards, and when your process starts outside the school. So there are things that are still striking to me, like, for example, having students at university with pen and paper, or when we create spaces to work like these ones, very, very clean and very nice spaces to work, and we in the classroom we continue to have the same tables and chairs that we had 100 years ago. But we have to create an education that really mimics what society demands, and that poses important challenges. I was discussing with someone about the adequacy of having tablets at a school, and he said it's like taking a child to a amusement park and then when you get there tell them to sit down and read about history. Of course, we are overstimulated, and that is the challenge that the teachers have. The use of IT tools, the use of all the information at your fingertips to generate interest and motivation, without forgetting that the final purpose is learning that not only happens in the school but also outside.
This training, these challenges are essential for teachers. Like Charles said, there's no need to remove the tables or the desks. We don't have to start killing everything. It's just introducing the little transformations that are needed. If you could identify an essential change to guarantee that the technology benefits all students equally, what would that change be?
There's a whole list of things that I could tell you. that we need. The pandemic a few years ago just placed us to face reality, which is the need to have very basic things, connectivity, devices, to have several spaces within your home to be able to work simultaneously with your brothers and sisters or other members of the family, the minimum knowledge to be able to do things such as a video conference. The pandemic showed us that this is not so obvious, and not everyone has access to the things that I have just mentioned. At that point, there were many administrations that really reacted very swiftly, and we equipped many students with those basic elements. But first, we need to know that everyone is in the position to access those things. And secondly, it would be to have expectations for students in more complex environment, to know what we expect from them, and for them to be able to do something. First, we have to think that they are able to face those challenges. And in institutions where there's a great complexity, they tend to use other methodologies or other dynamics because they think that in these situations things are more complex. And of course they are, but they can continue to use the same things. And there are institutions that are doing a great job by digitizing environments where there is a lot of complexity. The Colegio Nazareto Porto in the Carabanchel area here in Madrid, in a neighborhood, they work with their students, each one with a tablet, through projects up to 7 or 8 teachers in the classroom at the same time, and it's worthwhile looking at that. And there's another institution which really has a very clear idea about the need to incorporate the digital world, and you will have heard interviews and they have very interesting ideas and proposals. But there are people doing great things because they expect students to be able to do those things. And we have developed several projects in Catalonia that include, for example, the presence of 3D printers, of laser cutters, the need to program, and we do that with basic vocational training students. Sometimes the people that have dropped out of secondary education, and when you have committed and trained teachers and you have access to the right methodology and to the IT equipment that is necessary, and we really believe that the students are going to be able to do it, sometimes miracles happen. And the third thing that I would suggest has to do with real-time information and data collection. So both within the school itself and also at system level, I think that we could collect a lot more information in real time that we can share quite quickly in order to make decisions as regards the things that are working and the ones that are not. Something as simple as the following, which has already been implemented, which is the student ID number that allows you to track students throughout their whole school life cycle, and then you can also cross that information with employment data, with the situation they are in, and that would allow you to see what is working and what is not working in education and how to modify things along the way. So there are lots of things that we should change. Some do not even have to do with very advanced technology. It is more a question of innovating, like, for example, recording the classes, recording the courses. And that is not very common in Spain, and for me it is essential in order to teach other teachers to acquire the skills that they need, or to reflect on your own performance. And those questions do not depend on technology, they depend on your will power. But always we have to think about the added value that the teacher provides at the school, regardless of the technology.
Thanks very much, Miguel. So the training of teachers continues to be the fundamental focus. Now a question for the three of you. Charles, talking about teachers, what changes would teachers need in their pedagogical approach to effectively integrate AI in the teaching process?
The short-term need is that, of course, they get trained to how to use AI. That's the short-term need. But I think in a year we will not be having this conversation because, my center and others there's plenty of material out there about how to use AI effectively. It's just a question for teachers to do this professional development. But that's a short-term answer. Really, the profound change that's going to happen to the role of teachers is that right now teachers view themselves as both designers of material and deployers of material. But if you think about what I was saying earlier about the number of things that they have to do nowadays, they have to not just teach content, they have to teach concepts. They have to teach competencies. They have to design formative assessments. They have to choose the right pedagogy, including but not limited to projects. They have to choose the right projects, etc. It becomes overwhelming. In the past, when you were only teaching content, I'll give you the equivalent. It's like building a barn, a grange. It's possible to design it and to build it, even by people who are not super skilled. But now we're asking you to deliver the equivalent of a skyscraper. And so now it's unfair to put all of this on the teacher. The teacher cannot be an architect and a builder at the same time. It's too much. So I think teachers are going to start realizing that these demands that we're placing on them need to be addressed by professionals that design the curriculum for them, and then their role is the delivery. Now, it doesn't sound like, it should not be taken as, oh, that's the easy part, that's the hard part. The delivery, you're going to get your lesson plan, but you're going to have to customize it. Different contexts, in different cities, different countries, and different people, personalization. Of course, you're going to have an intelligent tutor in the background helping you keep track of all of us. But in addition to that, the students still need to interface with a real human being. And that's because learning happens socially. It happens with the teacher, happens with the other students. It's not enough to just be in front of a screen. And so that's the necessity, but teachers' role is going to be adjusted significantly. But it also means that whomever designs curricula, like us and SEK and others, are going to have a higher load on the front end so that the teachers are better equipped and then trained to deliver all this complexity on the tail end.
Nieves.
Nieves, well, in this model of change of paradigm that we are explaining, all the pieces need to undergo transformation. We cannot just think about time individually or think about the role of students separately from that of teachers, or separately about the content of the assessment process. If we are at a time in which the system itself needs to find its new purpose, if we think about the purpose of education as humanizing human beings, we need to begin by thinking about the meaning, what it means to be a human being in our time. What these attributes mean that are inherent to humans, and we need to start to work on that in order to make as much progress as possible. The role of the teacher is fundamental. He, she are essential pieces that the system needs to be focusing on students, not on teachers, but the teachers need to take on a new role, despite as Charles says, so many things that we are asking teachers to do. The new role of teachers should be incorporating the role of subjects learning when they come to the classroom. We were saying that we have many more questions than answers. We are at the beginning of the development of AI. The system will not do it by itself. The administration or the government will not do it by itself, or a network of schools, or a teacher by himself, herself. It will be a much more collaborative work in which listening to students, understanding their use of AI, or the teachers' use of AI, will be a fundamental piece. So in this role of teachers, because what motivates students to learn is basically knowing that the teacher cares for them. This is very basic, but how do we convey this interest for the student, this closeness to the student, this wish for the students to develop their best being? This is very complex and it cannot be outsourced. The role of teachers needs to be transformed. It has to be linked to the purpose of the system, the new purpose of the system, and it needs to start developing, we don't know towards where, but it will be a learning process in which teachers and students work together, share best practices, share the use of the tools. Sometimes we are confronted with the paradox that teachers do not want students to use AI because it makes us feel frightened, scared. The question is whether we are prepared for the use of students, for the way the students will use AI. But this is a change that provokes fear. We need to move from one model to another model in which the students need to know how to ask questions, how to answer questions. So how can we move from a point where teachers who have had so many years process of education, and this is marking the trend about how teachers perceive good or bad education, their own personal experience. They've also been trained at university in a specific way. How can we ask them, after so many years, to transform their role in such a drastic way? We need to respect the extraordinary efforts that so many teachers are making in many classrooms to make things change. So these are the things that we need to share. We need to be capable of creating much wider learning communities. We need to be faster in those communities in order to apply tools, in order to know and say what works, what doesn't. And this will help us shape this new role of teachers. I hope it will be the role of the ideal master, the ideal teacher. We only have 2-3 teachers that marked our lives, all of us, and those will not be replaced by AI. We want to have many more of those. I love what you say about children, students and teachers learning together. This requires a great degree of humbleness, of preparation, of readiness. The change will be really, really drastic.
I, as a professor, as a teacher, I go to the classroom and I can give you very clear examples. I think that artificial intelligence is going to help us a lot and it's going to demand a lot from us. Why? Because it will help us carry out those tasks that perhaps are more tedious. For example, you say, I want a 20-slide presentation about muscles and bones, and there it is, and photographs and everything. That's fine. That is going to help me. However, it will demand a different way of planning your classes, a different way to assess students, to organize yourself, because of course students and teachers are going to learn together, and you cannot just give a task as a requirement to pass your subject, because you do not know where that essay comes from. But that has a positive side, that is that it will force us to work at the highest levels of the learning process. We need a student to be able to to ask questions, to develop their own critical thinking, to create content and develop content, to discuss and to hold that debate about that content, and that is extremely attractive for teachers. And it is going to allow us to imagine and to conceive other types of classes, just forgetting about those tedious tasks, but in one way or another, of course, delivering classes as always has come to an end. And of course, master classes are still there and are still valid, but we have to take the best from the two worlds, a more traditional type of learning, but then there are teachers that really are are very nice to listen to, because there's a huge amount of knowledge and a very appealing way to listen to them. So there was a colleague that told me that we shouldn't forget that the fact that we learn starts at the classroom, and starts with that teacher that is able to convey their passion for what they are explaining for, and that with that motivation that becomes extrinsic, or that starts to be extrinsic but has to become intrinsic, and then it continues through practice, through vocation. John Dewey used to say that we cannot make a school mandatory. Mandatoriness can only stem from the desire of students to attend, to learn. So we cannot get that out of the equation. I think that AI is going to give us a set of excellent tools, and some of them we don't even imagine right now. But that desire to attend has to start at the classroom and has to continue outside. But that is very, very demanding, but we are ready and willing to take the challenge.
Big challenges indeed. You are very optimistic in what you say. The change is bringing really good things. Every step will be like a work of art. It will be difficult to reproduce these lessons, and will be an interaction, a rich interaction between teachers and students, and every class will be different. This is what may end up happening, and as you said, this will also reduce the entry barriers. At the end of the day, it is a contact between human beings, for human beings, and it's about moving towards the equality of opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. I work with teachers that are starting, and they say, well, this is very difficult, we have to work a lot. And I say, of course. What did you think? But at the same time, it is very exciting, and with AI and with all the tools that we have available right now, it is even more exciting, because it allows you to create whatever you want. Whole scene where students are involved in their own learning.
Gracias a los tres.
Thanks very much to the three of you. We have finished the conversation here. It's been fascinating. I really love the ideas that you have contributed and you have debated with us. Thanks very much.